At 10, the war on drugs. Millions of federal workers face drug tests. Thousands of drug buyers could lose their cars. Late word from Long Island, there was an explosion tonight at the Howard Johnson Motel in Jericho. The danger from radon in some hot showers. And Pentagon Magazine is on another controversy, publishing nude photos of movie star Lauren Hutton. Join us tonight at 10.
Hi, I'm Mike Farrell. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
Live from Channel 5 News in New York, this is the 10 o'clock news with John Roland and Bill McCreery.
They're everywhere in our town, street-corner drug dealers peddling death. But now the feds and the city have a plan to fight back. And the cries of the people are being heard. Their message, clean up our streets, save our children. That message has been heard in Washington.
Good evening. John's on vacation. I'm Jim Ryan with Bill McCreery. And the war on drugs will soon hit home for millions of federal workers, even the president's cabinet. They face drug tests, voluntary or mandatory. Patrick McGrath reports on the president's new plan.
In launching the anti-drug campaign, President Reagan said he is just following the lead of his wife.
So, starting today, Nancy's crusade to deprive the drug peddlers and suppliers of their customers becomes America's crusade.
The program President Reagan unveiled was short on specifics and did not propose any new government spending. It calls for mandatory drug tests for federal government employees with sensitive jobs, dealing with public safety or national security. Voluntary drug testing programs are recommended for other federal government employees and employees in the private sector. Federal employee unions don't like it.
I think it's an incredible invasion of someone's privacy to be asked to urinate in a cup in front of someone else.
The unions charge the voluntary program won't be voluntary.
I think that a stigma would attach to those people who would not volunteer to be tested. Their promotions would be withheld, their evaluations would be lowered.
President Reagan's program also calls for drug-free schools, but he denies there will be undue pressure on anyone.
We're not out to get people and fire them, and we're not out to get kids and kick them out of school for using it. What we're out to do is to see if they will not recognize that we want to help them, and they don't lose from that, so I don't see how that could become coercive.
The president concedes that drug testing alone is not enough, that to really eradicate drug use, there has to be a change in public opinion. Well, 3 years ago, President Reagan was able to convey a real sense of alarm about the declining quality of education. School boards and state legislatures all over the country were galvanized into action. With this crusade against drug abuse, President Reagan is once again hoping that he can ignite public opinion. Patrick McGrath, Channel 5 News, the White House.
And in our town, winning the war on crack may mean some people losing their cars used by drug buyers. And it also means getting the addicts off the streets and into treatment centers. But that means finding more beds. We have two reports, starting with Bob O'Brien.
If you drive to the city from New Jersey, chances are you'll need a parking lot. But this rooftop facility on the west side is definitely not the place you'd want to find your car, because this is one of the places where the Drug Enforcement Administration stores the cars it plans to keep. Cars recently driven by people accused of buying drugs. During a 4-day period last week, federal DEA agents working with New York City Police Special Anti-Crack Unit cops seized 30 cars from suspects who had allegedly just driven away from making a drug buy, usually crack or cocaine. All but 3 of the busts were made in the Fort Washington section of Manhattan, near the New York end of the George Washington Bridge. All but 3 of the cars seized had New Jersey plates, all of which brought the mayor and the top lawmen involved in the war against drugs to that very rooftop today.
The message that I want to leave today is if you come to New York to buy crack, bring car fare and be prepared to take the bus back.
Imagine the young men and women who have been arrested and who came over to New York with their cars. I think when they come back home without mama's car, daddy's car, the criminal justice system is going to be the least of their worries.
Is this program going to stop crack by itself? Of course not. But we think it is one additional tool that can be used as a deterrent that says to people in this community, If you want to break the law and you want to purchase or sell crack, there will be a price to pay.
As it relates to Jersey people, we don't think you ought to buy drugs anywhere, whether it's in New York or in New Jersey. But we're telling you, if you want to come to New York to buy your drugs, as Commissioner Ben Ward said, you're not going home, and neither is your car.
Of the 43 people arrested, 39 were from New Jersey, ranging in age from 16 to 39. The average amount of dope seized from each suspect, a couple of $10 vials of crack, possession of which is a misdemeanor. If you have a buyer who maybe bought one $5 or $10 vial of crack and you seize their car, you think you have a chance of that standing up, that seizure standing up in court?
In that situation. Of course we do, yeah. The thrust of the civil statute is if drugs are found on the person or in the car can then be seized. It has nothing to do with the amount. It has nothing to do with even the individual proof against the person.
Mayor Koch says his goal is to have federal and city narcotics officers seize 5,000 cars from drug buyers. Police Commissioner Ward told reporters the mayor was probably just kidding. He meant 500 cars. No, says His Honor, I mean 5,000 cars. We'll sell them off and help to balance the city budget. His Honor added that he wouldn't mind if the agents were able to seize a long stretch-mobile for his use. Reporting from a Drug Enforcement Administration storage facility on Manhattan's West Side, Bob O'Brien, Channel 5 News.
This is Steve Powers. State officials say that residential treatment centers for drug abusers are bursting at the seams now.
Today, the director of the state's Division of Substance Abuse, Julio Martinez, said that all 25 publicly funded residential drug treatment programs are running over 110% of capacity, and he can't accommodate people who need help now.
The minute that law enforcement starts cracking down on these individuals, they only have one relief if they don't want to go to jail or know that they're going to get arrested, so they're coming to our door. I'm telling you, coming to my door in the past 6 months, there have been close to 1,000 people for crack, specifically for crack.
Martinez says half of those people were turned away. Ellen was very lucky. When she went to Phoenix House for help 14 months ago, she got it.
I used cocaine, I used heroin, I used methadone, I used pills, I freebased, I drank, I smoked pot, everything.
The whole number?
I went straight across the board.
And what finally got you into this residential program?
Well, my life had started deteriorating so bad, you know, and I started living out on the streets, and I started doing a lot of things that I had sort of had control over for a while. And then finally I almost got killed. And that's when I just couldn't pretend anymore.
Somebody who has their life under control by a drug needs to get time away from that drug and time to then figure out what it is about themselves and their underlying psychology that made them so drug vulnerable to begin with.
I really needed to be totally off the streets for a while. I need to be in the surroundings where I was monitored, where I felt that people were there that could help me. And I think that if I would have went to a 9-to-5, that, you know, I would have been there from 9 to 5, and then after I got out, I would have been somebody else.
You gonna make it now?
Yes, I am. I'm gonna make it.
Steve Powers, Channel 5 News.
And tonight, state officials are saying that treatment centers have to take in more crack users, even if it means some overcrowding. And a Bronx City councilman has a drastic treatment for people convicted of selling drugs. Wendell Foster, who is also a minister, says pushers should be handcuffed to the bodies of drug overdose victims.
I'm proposing that if a drug dealer is caught on this corner selling drugs and there is no adequate jail space for him, chain him to the pole there and put a sign on him so people can pass and see that this is a scum of the earth, this is a drug dealer. I'm saying that chain them to the dead bodies, chain them to cages, like the Ringling Brothers use their cages to exhibit animals, exhibit drug dealers and say that they are the scum of the earth.
And Foster says he's dead serious about his idea. Jim.
Well, in Central Park tonight, Bill, the music is serious, classical in fact, but the mood is anything but serious. It is joyful. For the first time in 12 years, Leonard Bernstein is leading the New York Philharmonic. He's conducting 2 of his own works as well as the music of Tchaikovsky. Bernstein Bernstein says the only thing he's concerned about is to make the music come alive. More than 1 million people are listening.
And still ahead, we have a preview of Ferdinand Marcos's private treasures that go on sale soon, and the sale of Penthouse magazine with nude pictures of Lauren Hutton is stirring up controversy. And we have late word from Long Island about an explosion at a Jericho motel.
And some of the other stories we'll be covering for you on this Monday night. Cold-blooded murder or self-defense? The answer to that question could determine the fate of a young Manhattan woman who stabbed her former boyfriend when he tried to break into her home. Rosanna Scotto reports. Also coming up, preacher or politician? It could be a combination of both as evangelist Pat Robertson hits the campaign trail in Michigan. And Stu reviews Nothing in Common, a new film starring Tom Hanks and the great one, Jackie Gleason. We've got a great one coming your way, so stay with us. The 10 o'clock news continues right after this.
Well, officials right now trying to find out what caused an explosion at a Howard Johnson hotel on Long Island tonight. Dave Browdy's at the scene right now for this late report. Dave.
Well, Bill, what you're looking at is what used to be the window at the Howard Johnson's Motor Lodge in Jericho. About 7:30 this evening, there was a huge explosion here. Authorities don't know exactly what it was, but there was a smell of gas in the area. In fact, you can still smell gas in the area right now. They say there is a gas leak, which they have not yet repaired. Now, we do have some pictures that were taken earlier that show you some of what went on here. Several rooms were damaged. We're told that there are 8 guest rooms in all that were hurt. You can see some of the worst damage. A total of 5 people injured, 2 of them critically. Guests, a maintenance worker, a hotel staff employee, and even one of the firefighters who came to the scene to try to help some of these people has been hurt. Several of those now in critical condition. With me right now is Lieutenant Robert Schaffer of the Nassau County Police. Lieutenant Schaffer, can you tell us for sure what caused this?
Well, it appears as though it's some type of a gas leak, whether it's natural gas or sewer gas. We're not sure right at the moment.
Now, those who were injured by the force of the initial blast or by a fire that followed?
Well, the force of the initial blast, and there was some fire in there. There are some burns.
The people here now, are they going to be allowed to return? A number of guests are standing outside. The hotel looks in pretty bad shape.
Well, right now, whatever type of gas it is appears to be coming in from the street through some sort of a conduit. The Lilco is here. They'll be checking it out, and the telephone company will also be checking it out. It may be a telephone conduit.
So there is still gas coming up somewhere into that hotel?
Yes, there is.
So you hear it right here. There is still gas coming out. The guests in the hotel, some of whom are quite upset, some of whom are injured, will not be back in this hotel for some time to come. And we will bring you updates if something comes up here. We'll in the studio. I'm Dave Browdy, Channel 5 News, reporting live from Jericho, Long Island.
Thank you for that report, Dave. And in Mount Vernon, police say they know why Wilson Jones torched a building Sunday morning. It was to cover up a murder. 2 other people then died in that fire. Police say that Jones confessed. A Manhattan woman stands charged tonight with murdering her boyfriend. She claims it was self-defense. And as Rosanna Scotto reports, a lot of people who know her think she's telling the truth.
Did Regina Migdal kill in cold blood, or did she act in self-defense? That's what many people are wondering today. The Manhattan Assistant District Attorney says there is no reason to believe the 31-year-old was justified when she stabbed her ex-boyfriend Randy Kaspari to death. So the ADA charged her with murder.
According to police, the couple had dated for about a year and a half. They split last week. And yesterday, Randy Kaspari reportedly came here to reconcile with his girlfriend. She did not want to, and police say he went around to the back of this apartment building and kicked in her door.
Just heard help, police, help, help, screams, police.
Ron Frank was one of the people in the neighborhood who heard the cries for help. A woman who lives nearby and doesn't want to be identified also told me what she saw.
I heard these screams, help me, somebody help me, and I looked out the window and I just saw this woman, and she was pacing back and forth. She had like a nightshirt on, and she had blood on her hands, and she had a knife in her hands.
By the time police arrived at Migdal's first-floor apartment, Randy Kaspari had been fatally stabbed 4 times with a switchblade Miss Migdal kept for her own protection. Migdal was also injured in the struggle allegedly by Kaspari, and many of the people in the neighborhood defended the woman.
Anyone that forces entry into a
someone's apartment is endangering their life, because you never know what to expect on the other side of the door.
She was right, absolutely right. I mean, it was a self-defense. I would definitely have done the same thing.
I think it's ridiculous. If it would have been me, had I been in the house with a gun, he wouldn't have gotten 4 steps in before it had been blown in half. He has no business breaking down someone's door.
Migdal worked as a secretary for a doctor's office for the last 10 years. Nobody in the office would comment further than to say she's a nice girl. Around the block from where she worked, Randy Kaspari served as a doorman for a ritzy Park Avenue building. No one there would comment either, but off camera, one of the doormen described Kaspari as unstable. The assistant district attorney said the case will be going before a grand jury, and they will decide whether to indict Regina Migdal on murder or set her free. In Manhattan, Rosanna Scotto, Channel 5 News.
The Bronx man is in jail tonight, charged with murder in the shooting death of a high school student on a subway train in June. Dave Browdy had a busy day today. Before reporting on the explosion out in Long Island, he tells us that the credit for today's arrest goes to a cop with a good memory.
He almost swaggered through the 23rd precinct. Though charged with murder and attempted robbery, 21-year-old Aaron Van Dyke showed little fear of the legal system.
I didn't do it. You didn't do it? Why do they think you did it then?
I don't know.
Van Dyke is charged with the shooting of 17-year-old Herbert Brower on a subway train in Manhattan 2 months ago. Brower, at the time, was headed home from school. He was shot in the back. Police say the youth had walked in on an attempted robbery. Back at the time of the murder, one of his teachers described the incident like this.
One of these kids that was on the train turned to him and said, "Hey, man, what you bumping into me for?" And my guy said, "Hey, look, if I bumped into you on purpose, you'd know it." And from there on, words were exchanged. It turned into a scuffle. And suddenly, our guy was jumped on by about 6 people.